Hello everyone, I'm going to keep this video short and sweet. I'm just going to go over some misconceptions and answer questions that you guys have been asking me a lot over the past couple weeks after the patches that have affected Cassante, like the Fimble nerfs, unflinching, things like that. So I'll get straight into it. Fimbulwinter is still decent, but it's not broken to the extent of being able to buy it every game. If you still run into early mana problems, I like to sit on a Glacial Buckler now. It provides resists, mana, and ability haste for the early ability spam. The only thing is, you have to make sure the game is a good angle for Frozen Heart. Because Glacial Buckler builds into Frozen Heart, you have to actually make sure you can finish Glacial Buckler into something. Sometimes the enemy team comp will not be very auto attack reliant, or not super heavy on the attack damage side, so be cautious. So don't always buy Glacial Buckler if the enemy team is not really a good angle to buy Frozen Heart into. In the cases Frozen Heart does not look good, you may still buy a tier and make the decision if you want to buy Fimble or if another item looks better. If I notice our team already has quite a bit of shields, and the enemy team comp would not have to flip out to buy a Serpents, I tend to lean away from it. Just because when they do purchase Serpents, you're giving them that value on the item that could otherwise be avoided. It's just courtesy for your Enchanter support, Barrier ADC, or Seraph's mid laner. If you're skilled enough or don't need to spam Q as much, opting for no extra mana is also doable. Just make sure you can last hit well and consistently with your auto attacks, as a good chunk of your mana is spent on wave clear. I've noticed Cassante, patch after patch, start to lean in closer to the Warden and supportive side. Cassante is no longer able to carry games. You heavily rely on your teammates to be able to succeed with this champion, which is why you've maybe noticed me experiment with more items like Trailblazer or Zeke's. I'm still in the testing and deciding phase with these items, whether or not these items are good, but the old item guide is still up to date, other than Fimble not being viable every game. I've also started to build Randuin's Omen more often, and it's great if the enemy team has a carry champion with crit, even better if the top laner or jungler have some sort of crit or Sundered Sky. The 70% slow for 2 seconds absolutely bricks the opponent's ability to move. I've been enjoying Deadman's play into comps with lots of slows, however I'm still deciding whether or not Deadman's garners more value than Trailblazer, because you don't really need the damage on Deadman's, and Trailblazer is far cheaper with relatively the same stats that empowers your team and offers a crushing 50% slow for 1 second. Right now, I'll continue to monitor the items, but for now, I'd say Trailblazer seems to be a pretty solid item if you're able to be on the same page as your team. It is not good if you are snowballing or if everyone is just running around without a clue in the world where to be, typical solo queue. In a situation like this, I believe Gauntlet is your best choice. If you pair Trailblazer with Swifties, it does pretty much the same thing as Deadman's. Since Cassante needs to play heavily on the supportive side later into the game, things like giving your teammates an extra 70 movement speed is ridiculously undervalued. Keep in mind, Boots of Swiftness is 1000 gold and offers 65 movement speed. So if you empower 4 of your teammates with 70 bonus movement speed from Trailblazer, you're pretty much giving 4,000 gold worth of stats. Keep that in mind. As for when to build this item, I suggest it as an alternative to Gauntlet. However, I do not recommend buying this first when you're ahead. I like this item as a mid laner that's job is to assist, roam, and take down enemies with my teammates, since it provides great movement speed for me and my allies and a nice slow for when I engage to ensure my Qs and my Ws will hit. Other than that, I'd say the build has stayed relatively the same. I no longer build Unending Despair unless the enemy team does not buy anti-heal and they have 3 or more melee champions. The old item guide still stands relatively strong, apart from the Fimble changes. And I'm going to be honest, I way overhyped unflinching buffs. I think it's a nice option, but if your lane opponent has one form of CC, it's not as good as you might think. For example, I took it into Yone, expecting to get lots of value from his Q3 knockup. However, I just pressed W on his Q3 anyway. I don't get any value from unflinching. And by the end of the laning phase, it was active for like 7 seconds. Not the greatest. However, if your lane opponent has lots of slows or CC, someone like a Cho'Gath or a Maokai or even a Nasus, typically tankier targets, you should be able to get far more value from the rune. But overall, I absolutely do not recommend you taking it every game. Stick to Overgrowth and Revitalize if you have an Enchanter. If you haven't already, make sure to check out the full Cassante matchup spreadsheet in the description below. If I missed anything in this video or you're still stuck or have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. I'll be reading everything you guys write me. As always, have a beautiful day.